The galaxy remembered humanity. Every species, every empire, every civilization that had risen and fallen across the stars carried the memory of Earth's children like an old wound that never fully healed. The collective archives of the oldest living record keepers in existence, still maintained files on the humans. These files were marked with a single symbol that translated roughly to extinct threat in most languages. 40,000 years ago, humanity had been young. They had barely mastered faster-than-light travel when they stumbled into galactic politics. The great powers of that era saw them as nothing more than primitive creatures crawling out of their muddy planet. The Empire, rulers of 17 star systems, decided to make an example of them. They would show the galaxy what happened to species that dared to reach for the stars without permission. They sent their fleet to Earth. 300 warships descended upon the blue planet with weapons that could crack continents and boil oceans. They expected surrender. They expected begging. They expected the humans to fall on their knees and accept their place as slaves in the galactic order. What they got instead was war. The humans fought with a ferocity that shocked every observer. They used tactics that no civilized species would consider. They turned their own cities into traps. They crashed their primitive ships into vessels in suicide attacks. They refused to surrender even when their planet burned. The war lasted for 50 years, and when it ended, both humanity and they were gone. Earth was a dead world, a blackened sphere of ash and memory. The Empire collapsed from the losses. They suffered trying to exterminate a species that simply would not die quietly. The galaxy learned a lesson that day. It learned that some species were not worth the cost of conquest. It learned that humans were dangerous in a way that logic and reason. And so, when the final human colony ship vanished into the void, chased by the last hunting fleet, the galaxy breathed a sigh of relief. The humans were gone. The threat was over. 40,000 years passed. Empires rose and fell. The collective council now governed most of known space, a union of 12 species that had learned to cooperate rather than compete. They maintained peace through careful diplomacy and the understanding that war benefited no one. The memory of humanity faded from living thought and became legend, then myth, then a cautionary tale told to young species just beginning their journey to the stars. Ambassador of the People was old by his species' standards. He had served on the collective council for 300 years, and he had seen many strange things, but nothing in his long life prepared him for the message that arrived on a quiet morning in the council chambers. A ship had appeared at the edge of known space. It matched no known design. It responded to no hails, and it was heading directly toward the heart of the collective's territory. The council convened an emergency session. 12 representatives of 12 species gathered around the great table that had witnessed 10,000 years of galactic history. They watched the sensor data with growing concern. The ship was massive, larger than any vessel ever recorded. It moved through space without any visible means of propulsion. It seemed to simply exist in one place and then another, crossing distances that should have taken days in mere moments. High Admiral of the military was the first to speak. His voice was calm, but those who knew him could hear the tension beneath his words. He explained that they had tried everything to make contact with the vessel. They had broadcast greetings in every known language. They had sent diplomatic ships to intercept it. They had even fired warning shots across its path. The Phantom vessel, as the military had begun calling it, ignored them all. 3 days later, the vessel reached the system, home to 4 billion members of the collective. The military prepared for battle. 200 warships formed a defensive line around the inhabited planets. They charged their weapons and activated their shields. They waited for the attack that seemed inevitable. The Phantom vessel stopped. It hung in space like a dark moon, silent and still. Then, for the first time, it responded to their communications. A single message broadcast on every frequency, in a language so old that only the archivists recognized it. The message was simple. It said, "We have returned, prepare for judgment." Panic spread through the collective like fire through dry grass. Ambassador ordered the archives opened. He needed to know what they were dealing with. The archivists worked for hours, searching through records that had not been accessed in. When they finally found the answer, felt his hearts grow cold. The language was human. The ship was human. After 40,000 years of silence, humanity had returned. The council gathered again, but this time there was no calm discussion. Species that had cooperated for 10,000 years suddenly turned on each other. Some wanted to flee. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to surrender and beg for mercy. The blamed the for not detecting the threat sooner. The accused the of hiding information about humanity's survival. Ancient alliances cracked under the weight of terror. Admiral silenced them all with a single command. His voice thundered through the chamber as he demanded order. He reminded them that they were the collective council, the greatest union of species the galaxy had ever known. They had faced threats before and survived. They would face this threat together or fall divided. The council agreed to send a diplomatic mission to the Phantom vessel. Ambassador volunteered to lead it. His fellow representatives looked at him with a mixture of admiration and pity. Everyone knew that he was likely walking to his death. Shuttle approached the Phantom vessel slowly. As he drew closer, he began to understand just how massive it truly was. His sensors could not determine its exact size because parts of it seemed to exist in dimensions that his instruments could not measure. The surface was covered in symbols that shifted and changed when he tried to focus on them. It was not a ship in any conventional sense. It was something else entirely, something that his mind struggled to comprehend. A section of the hull opened and guided his shuttle inside. He found himself in a vast chamber lit by a soft, golden light. The air was breathable, calibrated perfectly for his biology. Someone had expected him. Someone had prepared for his arrival. A figure waited for him at the center of the chamber. It had the basic form of the humans from the ancient records, 2 arms, 2 legs, and a single head. But it was also something more. Its eyes contained stars. Its skin seemed to be made of light and shadow woven together. When it spoke, heard the words inside his mind rather than through his ears. The being introduced itself as a speaker for humanity. It explained that when the last human ships fled Earth 40,000 years ago, they did not die as the galaxy believed. They traveled beyond known space, beyond the reach of any sensor or scout. They found a place where the rules of physics bent to their will, a dimension between dimensions where time and space were merely suggestions. In that place humanity evolved. They shed their fragile bodies and became something new. They learned secrets that the galaxy could not imagine. They built tools that could reshape reality itself. And they watched. For 40,000 years, they watched the galaxy that had tried to destroy them. They saw empires rise and fall. They saw species evolve and go extinct. They saw the collective council form and grow and prosper. Ambassador found his voice. He asked why they had returned. Why now after so long? What did humanity want? The speaker's expression was unreadable. It told that humanity had been patient. They had waited to see if the galaxy would learn from its mistakes. They had hoped that the species who survived would become better than those who came before. They wanted peace and cooperation. They wanted justice and compassion. They wanted the galaxy to grow beyond its violent past. Felt a spark of hope. He asked if the judgment the vessel spoke of would be favorable. Had the collective proven itself worthy? The speaker was silent for a long moment. Then it showed something that broke his heart. Images flooded his mind. He saw the slave markets of the worlds, where lesser species were bought and sold like cargo. He saw the biological experiments of the conducted on species too weak to resist. He saw the resource wars that the collective fought on the edges of known space, conflicts kept hidden from the public record. He saw 10,000 years of hypocrisy and cruelty, masked by pretty words and diplomatic ceremonies. The collective was not what it pretended to be. Beneath the surface of civilization, the old brutality remained. Fell to his knees. He could not deny what he had seen. He could not argue that his people were innocent. But he begged anyway. He begged for mercy, not for the powerful who committed these crimes, but for the billions of ordinary citizens who had no part in them. He spoke of children who had never known war, of families who lived simple lives on quiet worlds, of artists and teachers and healers who only wanted to make the galaxy a little bit brighter. The speaker listened. When finished speaking, it reached down and helped him to his feet. Its touch was warm, almost gentle. Humanity's judgment was not extinction, the speaker said. They had considered that path and rejected it. Destroying the collective would make them no better than the who tried to destroy Earth so long ago. Instead, humanity would offer something far more difficult than death. They would offer the chance to change. The Phantom vessel carried seeds of a new technology, knowledge that could end scarcity and suffering throughout the galaxy. But this gift came with a price. The collective would have to face its crimes. The slave markets would close. The experiments would end. The hidden wars would become public record. Every species would have to stand before their own history and acknowledge the truth of what they had done. Those who refused would find themselves outside humanity's protection. And there were things in the dark spaces between galaxies, the speaker warned, things that humanity had been holding back for 10,000 years. Things that were very, very hungry. Return to the council with humanity's terms. The debate lasted for weeks. Some species accepted immediately, relieved that they had been given a chance to survive. Others resisted, unwilling to give up their power and privilege. A few tried to fight, launching attacks against the Phantom vessel that did nothing except prove how utterly outmatched they were. In the end, the collective transformed. It took generations and the process was painful, but slowly the galaxy began to change. Slavery ended. Exploitation ended. The species that had been oppressed finally found their voices. And humanity watched from beyond the stars, silent once more, waiting to see what the galaxy would become. They had not forgotten the lessons of Earth. They had not forgotten what it meant to fight for survival against impossible odds. But they had also learned something new in their 40,000 years of evolution. They had learned that the greatest victory was not the destruction of an enemy. It was the transformation of an enemy into a friend. And so they waited, patient and eternal, ready to welcome the galaxy into a future that neither side could build alone. The Phantom vessel remained at the edge of known space, a reminder and a promise. Humanity was watching. Humanity was waiting. And this time when they spoke, the galaxy listened.